Hi, my name is Michael Hewitt, and today I'm going to talk about muscle cars from 1965 to 1975. In addition, I'm also going to talk a little bit about where muscle cars originated from, the death and rebirth of muscle cars, and a little bit about recent day muscle cars. So beginning of muscle cars. In the 1920s, moonshiners and bootleggers began modifying their cars. Before muscle cars became a thing of their own, bootleggers and moonshiners modified their cars so they can outrun police while they were delivering alcohol. After Prohibition, bootlegging wasn't as profitable, so bootleggers began to race their vehicles. With high-performance vehicles becoming more of a thing, Oldsmobile introduced the Rocket 88 in 1949. This model had an upgraded V8 engine from the previous Oldsmobile 76, which had a V6. And in 1950, the Oldsmobile Rocket 88 dominated NASCAR circuit. Alright, so now this is the age that everybody remembers is the golden age. Big horsepower, big cubic displacement engines. So the golden age took place from 1965 to 1968. In this span of 3 years, muscle cars were at the plateau of big horsepower. The big three automotive manufacturers such as General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge were competing to lay claim to have the biggest and baddest pointing car on the streets. In 1966, Chevrolet introduced the infamous 427 Big Block. This actual engine came from experiments from NASCAR. However, General Motors wasn't the only manufacturer providing big cubic inch displacement motors. At this same point, Ford introduced their 428, which had ground-shattering low-end torque. And in addition, Chrysler had introduced its 440 Magnum, as well as their 426 Hemi. This 3 years had the most to offer in terms of big horsepower and style. It also was the beginning of a feud between the Chevrolet Camaro and the Ford Mustang, which is still going on to this day, despite the Camaro being discontinued in 1996 and the Ford Thunderbird being discontinued in 2002. Now, recent days, both the Camaro and the Mustang are back to the feud. Alright, so the death of muscle cars. You could say this was in the early 1970s, the mid 1970s. However, in the 1970s, the federal government would bring safety and emission standards that would push the muscle cars into limbo until present day. These standards fell under the Clean Air Act of the 1970s and pushed automakers into producing lower power engines that ran on low lead fuel. The automotive manufacturers were also forced to combine heavy bumpers for their government safety standards and anemic engines, which made for slow and heavy cars. In the same year, Ralph Nader and the Nader Raiders would lobby for safer vehicles. Ralph Nader and the government emission standards were basically killed the muscle car. In 1973, OPEC cut oil exports to the United States and caused a massive shortage in oil and gasoline and created a spike in prices. This crisis would cause a low demand for big cubic inch displacement muscle cars, and in addition, a large percentage of car buyers were now in the market for smaller compact vehicles. The rebirth. In the 1980s to present, muscle cars have made a comeback. The American muscle car was never completely killed off. However, it was slowed down to a crawl. In 1982, Ford played a major role in reviving the muscle car era when it introduced its infamous 302 cubic inch displacement engine. At the same time, General Motors introduced its 305 V8, which will be the building blocks for what we now know as the LS engine family. With technological advancements, automotive manufacturers are creating new aerodynamic muscle cars with high output motors. Some cars such as the 2018 Corvette ZR1 are laying down 755 horsepower to the ground. And the Dodge Demon is a little bit more at 840 horsepower. It is safe to say muscle cars have made an epic comeback from their past years. Questions?